Welcome to the 5th episode and week of Salmon Report, everyone. It is the 19th of October and it's time for another report on the rotations of Salmon Run. A quick update to the schedule of the series is that from next week I will try to release them every Monday, as I currently always miss one of the maps, and I'll do my best to catch up. But to all newcomers, Salmon Report is a weekly series introducing the weapon rotations to Salmon Run and sharing tips and hints with each other for the week or in general to get better at this fantastic game mode. Cheer up everyone, as this week the Explosher is returning and also the Bloblobber, and personally that alone will make this week pretty fun. I personally love variety and these are both pretty unique weapons to play with, so I'm looking forward to both. Apart from that, I think this week is going to be pretty underrated and I think a lot of freelance will struggle. But if you can master all the weapons, all the rotations this week are pretty strong in all situations. I would say the more technical weapons are the Splatoon Viper, Mini Splatling, Carbon Roller, Explosher, and the Tri-Stringer, so we have a lot this time. But how do the rotations look like? The current rotation is on Sockeye Station with a Splattershot Jr., Splatoon Viper, Mini Splatling, and the Splat Charger. All in all, a pretty good rotation, I might even say best this week, but I think most players haven't played a lot of Splatonas to have the experience using them during stress. The Mini Splatling is very ink hungry, so you have to know what you're doing, and I keep hearing every time that players struggle with rotations that have chargers in them. So we really need to talk about that. The Junior we have already talked about is as straightforward as it can be. It's relatively short range, so keep that in mind. It's better to keep to lower targets instead of chasing steelheads and fistics. We have other weapons for that, but the best part of this weapon is its ink capacity. It has the best ink capacity in the game, I believe, and you can easily test it. Just keep shooting and it will take quite a considerable amount of time to run out of ink, which makes it an excellent painter and lets a salmon it clear. It doesn't have the best DPS, but it's just enough really that you can hold back a whole horde alone with ease. I'd like to state here an overall tip to everyone that lesser salmonids are everyone's responsibility, not just one weapons, and they are definitely not something you just leave to your teammate. I see it way too often that everyone is focusing on bosses and collecting eggs, and instead of shooting the hordes and lesser salmonids one by one whenever you can during movement, players instead jump around and avoid them as best as they can wherever they can. This is a pretty huge problem and a mistake, since you contribute to the whole team eventually being overrun by them, and it's a lot harder to recover there where there's both a horde and multiple bosses around you, not to mention leaving those small fries to attack your charger player. So make time to clear lesser salmonids, deliver eggs and shoot at the same time. You gotta practice that multitasking, as Cohawks, Chums and Small Fry are very high on that target priority list. The Splatoon Viper being a new weapon type is probably tricky to play for many, but it's relatively simple and have a few tricks I can show at least. It has a tap firing attack and also a charge attack, but one very unique feature to Splatonas is that they deal bonus damage if a target is in their range, as in the Splatana actually hits them. And this works for both fast and charge attacks. In my opinion, Splatanas are one of the better weapons for Salmon Run and they are pretty versatile for all situations. Their charge attacks make them really good horde clearers, as the charge pierces targets. It's also fast and deals good damage, which is good against targets like a steelhead. And their fast attacks have long range and firing speed that can clear stingers and fistics efficiently, and is also a good painting tool. It's not a Splatana stamper for damage, but their charge melee hit is also dealing a lot of damage that can be used well against big shots and Kohazuna. I always like to compare them to an in-between of rollers and guns, and they do have the benefits of both to a degree. The one trick I'd like to show this episode that you should make use of is against stingers. Now you know that your charge attack spears targets with their shockwave. When you hunt down a stinger, instead of wasting time hitting the pots one by one, walk under the stinger and charge an attack straight up to its top. This way your attack will pierce through all the pots in one efficient hit. The Mini Splatling is one of the best weapons you can get in Salmon Run once again, but it's somewhat technical, since well, first it's a Splatling, so you gotta learn charging properly, but also this weapon is very ink hungry. It charges fast, has excellent fire rate and damage with decent range, and contrary to most Splatlings, it's pretty mobile, so it has all the pros of a usual Splatling without most of the cons, making it the perfect all-rounder weapon in every situation. Learning to use its charge mechanic properly is mostly experience, so it's hard to give tips there, apart from just a few that make use of the partial charges, since it's fast and you can save a lot of time this way during stressful moments. But if you overcharge your Splatling, you should always cancel firing by swimming just for a moment. This way you cancel the charge, and you also save yourself from wasting all that ink. And that directly connects to its weakness of being a very ink-hungry weapon. Since it charges fast and attacks really fast, it's easiest thing in the world to forget how much ink you have left and run out of it. Try to recover your ink every 3 to 4 bursts back to maximum so you always have enough ink when you are really in a pickle, and you should be fine. Last, the Splat Charger. It's a standard charger weapon, and instead of talking more about just this one, I'd like to give some generic charger tips, since judging from the comments, it seems a majority of you don't like to get the charger in Salmon Run, which is a shame since they are quite strong. Chargers often have the stigma that they're only good against bosses, which is not true at all. So just a few examples. First, chargers can paint a lot of turf fast by shooting partially charged shots into a direction and strafing, so make use of it at the beginning and end of rounds to help paint. Against flipper floppers, you can just spam tap firing and you will paint better than most other guns. Second, chargers pierce their targets with full charges, making them excellent horde clearers. Charge to full and try to aim at a long line of salmonids that you can even help by moving efficiently, and you can take out a lot of threat fast. For example, I barely see charger users taking out Quahawks, which they pretty much excel at and can help a team a lot. Third, yes, they are excellent boss platters. They can one-shot steelheads with a single full charge, which is extremely useful, but thanks to their long range, they can also take out steel eels, scrappers, and other priority targets fast, thanks to most stages having a somewhat advantageous high ground, giving you good vision. Another point that's usually not talked about are drizzlers. But honestly, drizzlers are constantly underestimated anyway. Since as a charger you have the longest range, aim at those torpedoes and prevent the ink storms. You might not always be able to hit back to the drizzlers, but preventing an ink storm on top of your team is a huge advantage for zero effort. Lastly, fish sticks. No, I'm not saying you should fire at the fishes with your charger, please don't do that. But you can massively help your team by firing a full charge shot at the top of any fish stick, since it will paint a straight path up to the top, which I found to be the easiest method by far, allowing a teammate of yours to deal with that fish stick with minimal risks trying to get up. Next rotation is the Gone Fishin' Hydroplant with the Aerospray, Carbon Roller, Explosher, and the Jet Squelcher. The Aerospray is as straightforward as it can be, similar to the Junior, a very short range and inaccurate weapon, but with great fire rate and painting. Thanks to its mobility, I would focus on targets that require lots of movement, so steel eels, scrappers, but you're probably a good candidate to take out stingers too, since you can easily make your way back thanks to your painting power. Don't overestimate your damage on the other hand. The Aerospray has fairly low DPS and short range, so you have to pick your fights well. The Jet Squelcher is the exact opposite in this situation, longest range shooter with fairly slow fire rate and okay damage. My personal tip would be to try playing a Jet Squelcher like you would play a Charger, with a bit more mobility since they share advantages quite a bit. Avoid close range encounters, that's where you're weakest at, and I wouldn't venture too far from the basket since you have a hard time painting and keeping yourself alive on the shore. Then the Explosher is the magic trick weapon and a blessing to most teams who struggle against fly fishes. It's generally not a fantastic weapon, it's hard to use, fires slow, quite technical and clumsy, but it has one huge redeeming quality, which is that its shots act like splat bombs. You can fire into launchers of fly fishes to destroy them with the Explosher, so during this rotation, if there's a fly fish wiping you, the Explosher is not doing its job. You can also use this against mudmouths, by the way. Your shots also pierce through targets, so you can be strong against hordes as long as you can arc your shots properly, and a single well-aimed arc shot can also completely wreck a stinger. I also wouldn't go too far with an Explosher. Keep to higher grounds and help clearing hordes and fly fishes. Finally, since your shots explode, it makes the Explosher the best weapon to paint walls for your team, and painting walls saves lives. Lastly, the Carbon Roller, the most misunderstood roller I believe, is the roller that should be playing like a whack-a-mole, as you have the fastest fling rate with the weakest rolling damage. Try to keep the flinging against everyone and treat it like a tap-firing gun, and you will be fine with it. With one exception that most tend to forget about, where rolling is still incredibly powerful. During griller waves, a Carbon Roller's main priority is still to use rolling to clear those small fries. They're by far the biggest danger in that wave, not the grillers. Also during Glowfly wave, while a Carbon Roller cannot roll over normal chums, you can in fact roll over the Glowfly chum, so during this dreaded wave you should still only use your rolling and shield your team from rush wave while letting them deal with the goldies. And for the final rotation this week, it's spawning grounds with the Tri-Slosher, Splat Roller, Bloblobber, and the Tri-Stringer. The Tri-Slosher is a very strong short-range weapon, excellent at horde clearing and painting. I would rank it similarly like the Arrow Spray actually, and also play somewhat similarly with it. They are fast and can deal decent amount of damage in short range, but definitely not capable of carrying the other weapons, and you gotta pick your fights well. Keep to low health targets and hordes to help your team the most. The Splat Roller is the perfect generalist roller. It's right in the middle when it comes to whether you should roll or fling, which arguably can make it also the hardest roller to maximize. I would like to recommend the Dynamo Roller video here for some tricks and tips to rollers in general that helps a lot, but with the Splat Roller it becomes crucial to learn when to roll and when to fling instead. You can still clear hordes very well as long as they are chumps and small fry, but against anything with more health, flings become more efficient. With a Splat Roller, horizontal flinging into rolling becomes a technique that I recommend mastering. None of those are enough to splat most high health bosses, but a horizontal fling into a roller straight after will usually do the trick. Tri-Stringers are also a new weapon type in Splatoon 3, and so most of us still have to practice and learn them, but there are a few tricks to them still. I would mostly keep to range with a Tri-Stringer, as its step firing is usually not going to be able to keep you alive in short range, but it's excellent for painting. Use your charge shots similarly like chargers to take out bosses and bigger targets since you have good range and damage to do so, and don't be afraid to use partially charged shots if you know they will hit. Since you can arc your shots, I would say all the slosher tricks also apply to stringers, so you can shoot behind steel eels, scrappers, or can fire drizzlers before they flip over. The biggest trick I think to Tri-Stringers right now is their bombs they spawn at the end of a fully charged shot. These bombs explode after your initial damage and deal a respectable amount after it too, which make it an excellent horde clearing ability, but instead of piercing targets like a charger would, you create an explosion on the ground. This can still be used against more stationary bosses such as a Scrapper or Stinger to deal more damage with a single shot. Finally, the Bloblobber, a top tier weapon for Salmon Run. This slosher excels at range, damage, painting, and has all the tricks you would want from a weapon. With this weapon, it's crucial to learn proper firing arc to master it, so it's recommended to practice a bit in the firing range, but once that is done, it's a monster. Its specialty is that it fires multiple bubble projectiles in an arc that can bounce off walls and also have a long range, meaning it's great for horde clearing, taking out faraway targets like a steelhead. Its multiple projectiles make it perfect against stingers or fish sticks, and also you can arc your shots. They can take out drizzlers that way, steel eels and scrappers better than others. Along with its great painting ability now, we have covered 80% of the salmonids it's great against. The hardest part is definitely getting used to multiple projectiles and the arc, but I think most of you should be able to grasp it really quickly unless you just don't like sloshers. This is pretty much the carry weapon this rotation, and I recommend practicing it as much as you can. For some of the extra tricks I mentioned, I fully recommend watching my sloshing machine video to check out and learn them. And that is it for this week's Salmon Report, everyone. This week I will likely have a bonus episode for the Bloblobber, but if any of you have a weapon that you'd like to see a separate episode for to go into more details, let me know here. As usual, if I missed something crucial and you have additional tips for some weapons, let us know here, or if you have questions, also don't hesitate to ask, and we will help as best as we can. Good luck with those quotas, my fellow co-workers, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Monday this time around. Take care and thank you so much for the support. Bye-bye.